The VC Project.
All right, we're on. We're live. Awesome. We got a couple guests with us today, and I will go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves. Doug, we'll start with you.
Sure. Doug Price, Chief Technology Officer at Media Resources.
I'm Dave Merlino with Media Resources as well, Director of Strategic Accounts. Glad to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And
Media Resources is the premier LED manufacturer.
At least one of the premier that we use, yeah, for sure.
Showing all the cool stuff that you see in arenas, hotels, all over the world.
Well,
really, not just in the United
talked
States.
about direct view LED in even indoor conference rooms now, right? Because the price has come down so drastically. You know, it's 1/10 of what it was. Right? So, Media Resources is definitely one of our largest vendors as far as direct view LED technology, which we'll talk a little bit about here today. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much using you guys a lot more lately. We're seeing it in a lot of our really high-end boardrooms and conference rooms and things like that. And you guys happen to be in town today working on a project with us, which happens to be, I don't know, about almost 2 stories tall, right?
Yeah.
It's a big video screen for a manufacturing client. So, yeah, that was a pretty cool project, as well as some of the other ones we're working on. But yeah, so let's start with you, Doug. How long have you been in the business? How long have you been at Media Resources? How long have you just been in AV?
Sure. I've been at Media Resources going on 4 years now. And before that, I was with other company, Indoor, and have about 9 patents with that company. Before that, I was with a company that did primarily outdoor up in Milwaukee. And before that, I was in the signage industry. And then before that, I was in the military as a computer engineer. So I've been around a long time. I've been doing LED since we were using rocks to make them, right? No, not really. But since you can only buy one color, like red monochrome, right?
Yeah, we still see a lot of those out.
Yeah,
and about,
you're still out there running, right? Yeah. So and worked all the way through that, selling it, designing it, engineering it, and now designing actual product. And that's what I do mostly at Media Resources.
Great. What about you?
So I started in LED in 2013. And as you can imagine, as you guys have noticed, the price of indoor LED at that time was just outrageous. $1 million, multi-million-dollar displays.
Yeah.
And so winning projects were few and far between. So it's been quite interesting. And then I came over here. I've been with Media Resources for 3 years now, mainly because, and I know we're going to talk about this, but I was at a company that was doing strictly SMD. And then I came over here because of the exciting flip chip technology. It was the first company to bring flip chip to the display area. And with that flip chip and the GOB coating, as you guys are well aware, it's just a game changer in the industry. It offers a lot of benefits. And then, as you guys mentioned, the price has come down so it's so competitive now that we are replacing projection screens everywhere, replacing LCDs, replacing LCD video walls.
Better brightness, better contrast, better color, everything all around.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic. You know, replacing a 2x2 video wall even 5 years ago was not even on the table. It wasn't even for consideration. Just too expensive. I really don't see the point in a video wall. Okay, unless you need
You're
a
talking
ton
about
of resolution.
A video wall made a flat panel display.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
yeah.
Unless you need a flat panel LCD video wall, unless you need just a truckload of resolution, there's just no need. And the reality is that the failure of the panels, and then you can't replace that particular
miscolorations, and
that is actually a thing. That is actually
anymore. Yeah.
As I've been doing this now for 10 years, you know, I started out with hey, this is the drawbacks of LCD video walls. Let's go attack that. But I've learned those are actually real drawbacks, and those are real issues in the field that happen quite regularly.
So tell us a little bit about the LED technology and how that's progressed over the years. Right now we're dealing with like GOB, COB, SMD. There's all this stuff, right? So we found educational to a lot of the people who are listening to us, right? But it's almost like, I don't want to get too technical, but like take it on a 5,000 foot view. Right?
Sure. I can probably break that down for you pretty easily. And like Dave said in the past, the SMD, and there's a lot of terms like you said, SMD, GOB, COB,
right.
You know, flip chip, you know, gold wire bond, copper. All these are techie terms. The basics are, it's an electronic device. It's like a light bulb, right? But it's not a bulb. It's an LED, right? So that diode has to have a positive, negative side. It's just like any other thing to make a circuit. You put a battery on it or whatever source of power to get it to come on. Well, that results in needing wires. Okay, so you have a positive and negative wire. Okay. In the past, that was the only way you could get an LED display. You had all these super many LEDs, and they had little gold or copper wires, depending on the quality of the product, going back down so that they could be powered on and off. And that's the simplicity of it. Regardless of what colors and all that, don't worry about all that. That's the simple. It's 2 wires and an LED, right? And then you actually said, okay, how are we going to make this better, right? So the lighting industry actually is the one that started with flip chip. Okay. I don't know if you remember 25 years ago, the first LED light bulbs came out, right? And they said they're going to last 20 plus years. They didn't. They lasted 3 years. Okay. And everybody was mad because they paid 20x the cost of a regular bulb.
Yeah.
Right. So the lighting industry is like, well, we can't lose this. We got to win this because it's got to go down this road. So they figured out that if you take the LED, instead of having the PN terminals, positive and negative terminals on top, if you put them on the bottom, you didn't need the wires because the wire bonding and the wires were the highest fail points. Okay. So those fail points went away. And now you buy LED products, they're all flip chip, white LED, right? And that's what it was. Well, 5 years ago ish, 5 to 6 years ago, a couple of companies started experimenting with RGB in that technology because we didn't want to get in at the bleed level, right? We got in at the slightly less than bleeding level, right? And I going to take that and create the packages that we've done and the processes and the actual equipment that we're doing now. And you guys have seen that in the field, and it's great. And what does that do for you? I know I said it's less fail points, but the real numbers are this: a regular SMD gold wire display can be 20 to 50 parts per million failure rate. And you say, well, that's 50 parts per million. Well, one display that's an HD display has got like 2.3 million pixels. Okay. So if you imagine 50 dots out on that, you could see that. Okay. The flip chip, it's less than 5. Okay, so it can be 5, 2, or even 0 parts per million, depending on it.
I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second, because what a lot of people don't realize too, and I didn't even realize this either, right? When you look at flat panel technology, right? Don't even think LED, right? Those are just really small pixels. Because if you get up really close to it, especially the old 1080p, not necessarily the 4K, it's harder to see the 4K, right? But you can still see the pixels. And what's interesting enough is there's actually a failure rate on all of those as well. So when you buy a brand new TV out of the box from anywhere, the odds of you finding a pixel dead on that, if you really inspected it, is pretty high, right?
Yeah,
at least one,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
But you don't see it because your eyes blended together. You step away back from it, and they're so small, right? And it's the same kind of idea here, but just bigger scale.
Exactly. That's the way it is. And now we're, in the past, like when Dave came on the company we were at before, like 4 millimeter was tight. And then 2.5 was the tightest.
And when we talk about that, it's the spacing between the chips, right?
Exactly.
Because the tighter that spacing, the closer you can be to it, and your eyes blend the dots together. So you don't see the dots, right? So for example, the outdoor displays can be 16, 20 millimeters because you're 100 yards from it, where the indoor displays have to be really tight, which is an exponential number of pixels.
Exactly.
Right? Exponential cost in some regards.
It can be,
too,
yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah, but that's the basic concept of that.
Yeah, and it's really as simple as like everybody's recently been seeing the new big sphere that's in Vegas. Those pixels on the outside of that are 12 inches.
Yeah,
they're 12-inch space,
foot apart.
a foot apart. But from a half a mile away, they look like HD. I mean, they look like perfect.
It looks great when you see those things. And even when we get to the display we were working on today, that's 8 millimeters apart, and we're about 100 feet back. Looks fantastic. You go into a room this size, now we're talking 1 millimeter apart.
Yeah, or even sub. We're going to be probably releasing our 0.6 millimeter probably in Q1,
which is what a flat panel is.
So actually, an 83-inch HD is like 0.94 or something like that.
So it's tighter than the actual pixels on the flat panel, and now we're customizing that.
Exactly.
But anyways, you were going on about the SMD and the
so basically back to that. So you have the old school SMD, and most people are still offering that product. We were the only ones that brought the product to market in a big fashion, 3 years ago. Okay, and now there are other manufacturers bringing product out, but they're just bringing out first. And if there's people that are watching the podcast or listening to podcasts, they'll also say, and there may be some people out there that know the wall product that another company has, and it's actually a flip chip product too, and it's been around a while. However, the installation process for it is much harder, much more difficult. And not to stray away from the LED piece of it, but that's one of the things that I was able to bring to the company and to the product is an installation system that goes up about 30% less time than the average competitor. So it pulls the product as a high quality product. It makes it install faster and make it a seam adjust and all that much more smooth.
Is that one of the patents that you had?
No, that was for us here. And to be honest, we looked at patenting that, but the reality is we just took common sense things and created some of our own extrusions. So we own the extrusion for all of our installation system, but we took common sense knowledge from my history in the industry. And I didn't tell you how many years earlier, but I've been in over 30 years.
Sure.
So
You mentioned the 9 patents.
Yeah.
Any of those you want to talk about that the listeners would like to hear about?
So I'm listed on 9 patents at another company, and it's basically things from custom displays that would unfold and fold, and curved displays, and also stackable displays, and displays that run on just battery power that are designed to roll through a convention center. And there's a bunch of other little mechanical things too, but those are the basics. So
that's awesome.
No, it's fun to do that too. And that's why I like being at Community Resources, because I can now use my knowledge to help design new products.
I'm always fascinated with how much more quickly the installations go now versus 10 years ago when we did LED technology, right? Actually, here in Peoria, we did an LED install. I couldn't even name the brand. I mean, it was some super Chinese off-brand that we had purchased, and it was still $1 million, right? It wasn't even a name brand. They're not even around anymore. You can't even service these things anymore. Still running. And back then we were doing, I think we're 8 and 12 millimeter pixel pitch, but indoors, 100 feet away looks fine, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, very, very fascinated by the ease of installation now and the overall quality of what's come up. So one of the things our clients have talked to us about recently is we've been doing a lot of your product, which was the GOB, and now we're doing some more that's COB. I was actually hearing you explain that to the client earlier today. So if you could kind of explain that to, to Pat, who wasn't there.
Spell out that acronym too for the.
I'll let him.
So we have a product that's called Flip Chip GOB, which is the acronym is glue on board, which is basically a term for the coating that goes over top of the pixel. Okay, and then the other one is COB, which is chip on board. Okay, and you would think that in the industry the terms would relate to the same thing, but they don't. Okay, and it can get confusing really easily. A flip chip GOB product is actually a flip chip LED. We talked about what that was. There's no wire bonding. So there's a flip chip LED, and there's 3 LEDs in a red, green, blue, and it's in a package. And that package is got its own epoxy, almost like a regular SMD package, but it's there. And then that package gets SMD mounted to the actual circuit board. And then there's a coating that goes across that. That's the GOB coating, which is protective, which makes our stuff tough, makes it easier to handle. It does a lot of things, makes it like you can sanitize it, all of that. So that's the way that works. COB is the same kind of LED itself, but take all of that apart back to the LED, right? The flip chip LED. Then instead of having it in a package and then onto board, you take the circuit board and you take the LED and put it directly on the board. So you put red, green, blue, in pixels. So each 3 LEDs create a pixel. Then you take that and then you put a layer of protection across that, and it's a different application method. It's a laminated application method with heat and pressure, whereas the GOB is more of a potting type method. It's not really potting, but it's a flow method. Okay, those are the 2 different technologies. Now, you have the same type LED in it. Why wouldn't everything just be COB? Because there's reasons that there's things that take away from it. Okay, the flip chip GOB product, because it's actually packaged before it gets put on the board, the actual binning of the package or the pixel can be done more accurately. Once you go over to COB and you're doing pixels and you're putting them on the board, you can't get it bend as accurate. Okay, there's just no way to make sure, because you can bend the red and the green and the blue, but when you put red, green, blue together, does the white look right? So there's things that just are slightly off, right? And you can't be as consistent. And the technology for doing that is still growing. So at some point, COB may surpass what GOB is doing in the methods, but the actual COB piece is just as high quality, but you don't have quite as wide a viewing angle. You don't have the actual bending as much. So if you may have to calibrate that display versus the other. But now we're seeing with the quality of LEDs that we're purchasing that even calibration is not necessarily required with the COB currently. I personally think that in somewhere in the future, COB may become a commodity. Okay. And the reason I say that, and not a lot of people will talk about this because they're like, well, don't bring that up. But the reality is, if you look back at flat panel glass manufacturers, 10 years ago, there were 15 or 20 glass manufacturers. There's 3, maybe 4 in the world today because it's been commoditized.
Right.
And the cost 15 years ago for that was way up versus today you can buy a 96 inch or a 72 inch for $600.
Half of what you could buy a 55-inch plasma screen with a big, huge external box on it.
Exactly.
I remember when I was 19 working in the electronics department at Sears, selling still rear projection TVs was the big way that you did
I can
it,
see
right?
him selling in Sears.
Oh
too.
yeah.
Not like that job. No, I lasted about 2 or 3 months. Right?
Okay.
But man, I sold those TVs, man. I just cranked them out, right? But that was back with rear projection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the first plasma screen came out, and we were all like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing ever!" But holy cow, look at these honking cables, and you got to have
Heavy.
this external box. The thing weighed a ton, but it was you look back on that, it's just unbelievable. And then I look back, I go to my grandma's house, and I'm like, "What is this thing? This archaic like monstrosity, right?"
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I don't want to, she's still got an old tube TV, right? That'll kill you if you start screwing with the back of that thing.
I don't even talk about that. My history goes back that far, but we won't go there.
We've had some good installs with you guys. When I say good, unique between the wrap wall and then the 80-foot board from a sales perspective, and you get a little different view of this. The listeners are ever in Ballpark Village in St. Louis. Your guys' products are completely throughout there. What are some of the projects that you've really had a good time doing that are maybe unique or a little bit off of the norm that you're proud of?
Well, you're going to see one in the Cincinnati airport that is really incredible and really difficult to describe. But there's a big flat flip chip GOB product in the back, standard, and then on the ceiling, they took a number of our cabinets and made, if you would, clouds. So they're cabinet clusters. We mounted them on the ceiling, and then we put a little tether on the module in case anything happens, they won't fall on somebody. Okay, so now you have this cloud scene on the ceiling, and then in the front of the display, in the front of the building, the display kind of mimics the customer's logo. So it's at funky angles like a trapezoid.
It's actually
kind of
slanted like this.
Yeah, and then it's also three-sided.
It has the face, then it actually turns to inside, and then the outside where the angles are, there's modules there. And you think, well, what are you doing there? We actually created custom modules that are shaped to fit the triangle to make that shape come up.
What's interesting is Avixa, we all know Avixa,
Mm-hmm.
integrated our industry trade association, right? When you go into their headquarters, the way that was achieved, their logo is built out of an LED wall when you walk into the main lobby, but it's just a square LED wall
Masked.
with masking of wall structure, drywall, whatever the material is in front of that.
Sure.
So you get the cool logo with the look, but it's not the customization of
Yeah,
that.
and that takes, and we do that. It's not an everyday thing, right? But because of our capacity and capabilities for design and engineering, we can do that. And it takes more time and obviously more dollars to do that. And people say, well, you make this one, why can't you just cut it up through there? Well, now you guys know you can't do those kind of things, but you have to test those boards. You have to make sure they're right. And that takes time. So instead of let's say a 3-month or 4-month project to do something like that, right, with regular flat displays, that ended up being about a 9-month project.
All custom modules.
It'll be opening by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I'll say that it will intrude a little bit. I'll let you continue. But the project we were working on today is interesting, and I wanted to bring this fact up, right? So we're out, and we can talk about some of these things, right? We're out at Caterpillar, right? And in their indoor proving grounds, we have a display wall, and that display wall is basically 3 16:9s, if you will, put together as a giant 80-foot wide screens, right? So you can do one giant image. You can do, when they're demonstrating and instructing and teaching people how to use these big machines. You can get GoPros from the cab with a drone. We can put it all on the screen with a PowerPoint presentation and all this crazy stuff that we can do. But what's really interesting is these machines are just massive in this facility, what they're doing there, right? But Ben, who's their main AV guy, right, was telling us today that when people come out there, here's these multi-million-dollar massive machines. And we're guilty of it. When we were working at a facility, we were in a dump truck that, you know, the tires were 16 feet tall. And we immediately were like, we want to take a picture with this machine. This is the coolest thing we've ever seen, right? He's telling us that more people are wanting to take pictures in front of the video wall in the mound of dirt than they are of the actual tractors out there when they take the thing. So
Makes us feel good.
they're getting the wow factor. So when we talk about these airport things, right? Why are individuals spending money on that? Now at Caterpillar, it's a specific reasoning that's education and training. Here it's just kind of wow factor, right? But that wow factor is, we talk about user experience all the time, right? Creates an experience within said organization, right?
There's no more stressful place than an airport.
No,
To me, when you can walk through there and get that kind of experience to get something else.
And I think that's what this is.
Absolutely.
And we can't say the client's name right now until it opens up, but it's a bank and it's an experience center. They actually have an actual bank there, with actual registers and all that stuff. And then right beside of it is where this is going, we talked about, and it's their experience center. So it's not just our products and stuff that's in there, but they want their clients and future clients to come in and understand the technologies that are around. They have little rooms they can do things and whatnot. But they wanted to make this a wow factor so that it draws attention to there instead of just I'm a bank. Right.
Well, and I know it's probably not your product. I hate to bring up other installs, but
no,
I
go
will
ahead.
say one of the wow factors that I've ever seen when it came to LED technology was everybody talks about the Salesforce Tower.
Yep.
Right, in San Francisco,
Sure.
right?
No, it's awesome.
So if anybody wants to see that, just Google Salesforce lobby. It's one of the coolest experiential direct view LED things
We agree.
I've ever seen. So what else like that have you guys? I know you guys just came from Vegas earlier.
Yeah,
right?
well, a little bit about just a quick history of the company. Media Resources has been around since 1967, and then in the digital space, really started doing outdoor LED first, of course, and then they brought Doug on to really make a run and get a product set for the.
When you say outdoor LED, we're talking like digital billboards
Yes.
and that kind of thing.
and
spectaculars.
spectaculars on casinos. And so what's really cool is one of our integrator partners came to us and said, look, we got this great big display. It's two displays, but it's indoor on this half and outdoor on this half. And we want indoor LED here, and then the same display to go outside. And so we built these two giant displays, very similar pixel pitch, indoor and outdoor, all on one frame. Okay. Awesome. And yeah, so stuff like that, having the outdoor team, like I'm more of an indoor LED guy. Okay. And that's my experience. All 10 years I've been doing indoor, but having the outdoor LED availability gives my clients the chance to dream up crazy stuff like this. And we pulled it off, and it's pretty sick to see this giant LED display go out the doors outside.
Yeah, and it's glass between,
Yeah.
so you can see both at one time.
Mhm.
So it was
Very, very
1.25 inside and 2.5 outside.
And it's the back end behind the, because when you see these things built, right, you think, holy cow, this is crazy, but it's really not that complex. They kind of all snap together and go, I mean, it is complex. I'm not trying to oversimplify it,
Mhm.
but you guys make it easy for us to put these things in. It's actually much easier than you think. But then when I saw the outdoor one go up that we were just talking about, right, it's like, oh man, that's a totally different kind of
Different
back end
concept.
and concept and everything.
Yeah.
So I can just imagine blending the complexity.
It was
of
very
those
interesting.
two together.
It was
Yeah,
very interesting. And you talk about wow ones. We just completed one at Falls View Casino in Niagara, Canada. Okay, Niagara Falls, Canada, and it's 130 feet wide, 10 feet high. It's 1.56 millimeter. It's one big display. It's being controlled by one controller with 30 some video inputs.
Would love to
It
sell
has
that one.
it has redundant data, so that if anything fails, you only end up with one square out, no matter what. And it, based on Wikipedia search, it's the fourth largest display in pixels in the world.
That's incredible. I
So
heard an interesting story about that install too. Sai was telling us about that yesterday,
Yeah.
to where you guys had to get creative with those final pieces, correct, on the top, because they were hard to get to with the lift.
So yeah, there's some interesting things there. And it was that, and also we had to account for. So we have, one of our things is that we have an optional wireway at the bottom to make wiring easier, and we won't go into details there. But that was coming along, and there was a door, an entryway. Well, it was going to go up into that, so we designed that custom there to make that work. But yeah, there's always this weird thing about how do you get to that last point when they're already putting furniture in, and you can't get a lift there and stuff like that. So we overcome
The
that.
beauty of LED technology, direct view LED technology, is, I mean, yes, we could put it in a conference room in 16:9 format, 1920 by nice resolution, right? But when you do that experiential things, the beauty of this technology is you can build it in small chunks to be completely custom, like you said, custom angles, custom everything. So you can get this complete wow factor. I mean, it takes Times Square to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
It's not just wraps and stuff. It's all kinds of weirdness to it. So
Yeah, you talked about CAD, even at one of the other facilities, doing that corner wall that's in there in a hallway, right? Even that is such a wow factor for people walking by and experiencing that, because depending on your content creation, you can really be
yeah, content drives everything when it comes to any
Absolutely.
kind of signage or experiential signage or things like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
As I've been in this business for 10 years now, when I look around the world and you start to notice these things, but we won a huge project at an airport, and it was crazy simple, but they were putting new floors in the airport, okay? Brand new floors, and they had static signage everywhere. Well, now every time you want to change that static signs, you got to put plywood down, bring out a whole bunch of union guys, then they got to roll out lifts, and you have to be out of there before the airport opens. So by the time you lay the plywood down, you got a couple hours of work to change all those static things. So when I'm in an airport nowadays or any place and I see static signs, I think to myself, it's just a matter of time before it goes digital, because it doesn't make any sense. It's too hard, too expensive to change these static things up and down, right? So now as price comes down, I keep thinking to myself, every static sign is eventually going to be digital. It just won't make any sense.
Well, I mean, even in recent years, you're seeing static signs that are the size of flat panels, because flat panels are bigger,
Sure.
right? Going 65, 75, 98s, and I'm seeing 98s turned in portrait used for advertising, right? That's kind of the norm now. Static signs for anything of that size is not really much of a thing. It's all digital now.
Yep,
Right? And
it's got to
just,
be.
again, because of that kind of bell curve with costs and technology with direct dvLED, you're starting to see that come about more and more. And I think, like
I
you
agree.
said, the commoditization of some of that stuff, like anything that we deal with in our world, is going to just drive that tenfold.
And if
I
I
agree.
could, briefly talk about, we didn't hit on this too much, but the flip chip GOB product and our COB product, what's really exciting about it is, as this price has come down and the 0.9 millimeter, the 1.2, 1.5, what we call the fine pixel pitch, sub 2 millimeter, has become more affordable. Okay, well, those are the fragile ones, right? And upon install, it's very easy to chip those LEDs off, and it makes installation very difficult in handling. And then if you're in a public space, they can break off, pretty easily with anyone bumping into them or touching them. So our GOB coating, which I have not seen our competitors offer a flip chip GOB product. Okay, that coating eliminates all those issues, and that helps the installation go much faster. Believe it or not, the chipping of the LEDs really slows down an install.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen where they've chipped so many, they had to bring a crew on site to repair modules during the installation.
We actually had to do that with one of our former manufacturers. We had to fly people in just to replace the chipsets on there.
So
It's a huge competitive advantage from a sales perspective for me when you're in an industry where there's a ton of options. The options are endless when it comes to LED. So to have something that sets you apart, it's incredible. And it comes back to the cleaning and all the things that you can do with it. Yes, it's more durable. You can be up next to it. Scratching isn't there. You don't have to worry about the bulbs breaking. It's
interesting that, like, I always joke around about, how many speaker brands can we sell, right? I mean, there's 100 speaker brands, right? At some point, it doesn't make sense, right? Because a speaker's a speaker. Well, you still want a quality product, right? And for me, whenever I'm dealing with a manufacturer, I want a quality product and service after the fact if there is issues, because issues always arise, right? So, that's what I've been thankful for with Media Resources, is you guys have always had great support, and I think you've sold a great product. But again, I feel like 1 million LED manufacturers out there now, right? And and I've always got people knocking on the door, hey, sell our stuff, ours is better, right? And it's hard for me to, we talked about this in a previous podcast. So I put my blinders on when I pick a brand, I stick with it, right? And I will venture out. Media Resources is one of the recent ones that I'm pretty happy that we changed over to. So I do thank you guys for that.
And you look at our projects over the past 2 years, the amount of LED projects we went from doing, which was a smaller amount,
maybe one a year if you're lucky,
to now our last 2 years, between the affordability and having a product that separates itself. We've done tenfold as far as the LEDs go.
We've actually sold more LED displays than we have projection now.
And I think that's going to continue to happen.
It's going to happen.
We're not doing a lot of really lower end, like K through 8, high school type. You can crank out quantities there all day long, and projection's still the way to go, because it's just dollars, right? You can get a projector for $2,000, right, for a lot of these types of spaces. But we're more of a custom house, kind of, but we still do larger kind of, turn and burn, cookie cutter-ish kind of things for conference spaces, because we focus on standardization. But in general, I think that we have outsold LED versus projection. Would you agree with
I
that?
would agree with
I
that.
think
Yeah.
we have, at least this year we have.
And
Maybe
it comes
not
down
last
to
year.
that experience. If the customer can afford that experience factor, it's not even
And that's
close.
when the cost comes down, it makes it better, right?
We're seeing churches start to integrate.
Absolutely,
this
we
thing,
are
right?
too. We
And
did one just recently. It had 2 displays that had projection, and they replaced it with that. So we've
it's
seen
all
that.
about experience when you're dealing with house of worship, right? And that
Exactly.
is that's key for that. Well, guys, I thank you for coming on. Appreciate you stopping by on your way back up to Chicago, and it's just great having you. Thank
No
you.
problem.
everything,
Thank you
fellas.
for having
Anytime.
us. We
Thanks,
love it.
guys.
Appreciate it.